pending threat of nuclear weapons in Iran.
I
think that was a totally misleading reading of their situation.
And bro, it went from they can't have a nuclear bomb to they can't enrich. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people kind of get like tricked up right there, because it's like, bro, it was about them not having a bomb. Now y'all saying that they can't even enrich uranium, and you know they're gonna fight you on that because they do have the right to enrich uranium. Now the problem is though that we believe that they may start enriching uranium to that 90% to get a bomb. But the problem is though, in 2015 we was able to get that under the JCPOA, and that took care of that problem until 2018. Donald Trump ripped up that deal, placed the IRGC as a terrorist group, killed Qasem Soleimani. Oh yeah, and he put back on the sanctions, which was the whole reason why Iran even got into the deal. So Iran had no reason to abide by the JCPOA no more. Acts of aggressions was taken upon them, and by 2021 they're at 60% enrichment. We're all just like, oh shit, yeah, we're having that oh no shit moment. All because, well, I'll be real with you, when Donald Trump ripped up that JCPOA deal, that led us on this path right here. Because if he didn't rip up that deal, we'd have all the intelligence under nuclear capability and everything. And let's be real, if they was doing anything to push towards that 60%, we'd have known it have violated it, and we'd have been able to take these actions, rightfully so. But like I said, that's if, you know, only if Trump would have just stuck in the deal.
Flies completely in the face of what we were told happened after the 12-day war.
I already know what you're gonna do. So you just want to give millions to them, billions? Well, that's what relieving the sanctions does. Obama didn't just give these guys money out of American people's pockets or the taxpayers' pockets. He gave them money from the release sanctions that froze up their assets, and now they're just getting that back for us to be able to observe their nuclear capability. So I'm just like, it's a good deal in my eyes. I mean, all right, I'll give you your money back that we really don't need. It's your money, and you let us look over your nuclear capabilities. Nothing wrong with that.
So I think that this was a genuine desire by the Israelis to have a regime change in Iran, and they persuaded Donald Trump to join in. That's why Antony Blinken said they tried to get Biden to do it. They tried to get Obama to do it. They both said no, and Israel did not attack. This time they got third time lucky. As Marco Rubio said, the Americans got involved because they were told another country was going in, and they knew that there would be retaliation, so we better get in first. It came out of the Secretary of State's mouth.
Yeah, I mean, Obama called their bluff. Oh, they came to Obama and said, look, bro, it's like, look, you need to help us to fight Iran. We're about to go bomb Iran. Like, you got to follow us up on that. He said, no, I'm not actually, but good luck. Oh, well, we'll nuke them. Okay, go ahead, do it. See what happens. Like, good luck with those consequences. That's all really Trump had to do was like, oh, well, like, you know, if we attack them, they'll attack you too, guys, right? I mean, shoot, I'll just call them and tell them, look, if they attack us, it's on, but you guys are going to attack them by yourselves. We're not going to back you up on it. Oh, we'll use a nuke. I mean, go ahead. I mean, good luck with that. It's not going to really work out well for you if you don't destroy them all, but good luck.
So the beauty of this whole war, if there can be such a thing, is the clarity coming out of people's mouths. They will be judged accordingly. Let me bring Cenk back in here. You know, I keep going back to that Rubio moment because to me, that is at the core of this war. I think Trump got bamboozled into doing this by Netanyahu, who made 8 visits to America in the build-up to this. And we saw J.D. Vance say similar things only last week.
Yeah. So there's 3 different factors with Trump and the Israelis. Number one, the Adelson family alone has given Trump over $300 million in campaign contributions. So anyone saying that Trump is not affected by $300 million lives on a different planet. So they literally bribed him. That's legally possible in America. Miriam Adelson is an Israeli. She's the one who flew out Jonathan Pollard in her private jet to congratulate him back to Israel, gave him a hero's welcome. So these people are not for our country. They're the opposite, right? On top of that, let's be honest, there might be blackmail. But let's go past that. And they did. And Netanyahu came and talked to him 8 different times and whispered sweet nothings into his ear. And he said, oh, you're going to be a hero. You're going to conquer the whole world, Donald. And you know what? We're going to do it anyway. You'll be a spectator to history. That's a direct quote that they used. So you better not be weak. And the thing is, guys, you know, Piers, the one thing I can't agree with you on is Trump is a baboon. I mean, he's so stupid. It's like talking to a child. Bro. I mean, if you told me, oh, you're going to be a spectator to history, you better attack Iran before we do, I'd be like, shut up and get out of the American White House. And but Trump's like, oh, okay, Daddy, am I going to be big and powerful? So I can't stand the guy, and I can't stand
I don't think calling him
a rational person.
Look, honestly, when you call Trump a baboon, you're kind of falling into his rhetorical trap of getting in the gutter with him. And I don't.
What is this? What is this, Piers? Well, I mean, can you agree that he's a stupid man-child? Can you at least agree on that?
No, I don't think he's a stupid man.
I mean, what is this screaming into the abyss? I'm going to kill them all. I'm the new heavy.
I'm weak. You know what's crazy? Me and Sid Loki had an exchange like this exactly. It's like, yo, I know there's people like Sid and Jank that want to throw Donald Trump completely out the window. F it. There's no way we're getting out of this. He's a complete idiot. And then there's some of us that's reasonable. That's just like, you know what? Look, he made a mistake. He can still correct course. He may not see that he make a mistake, but maybe if he sees it, maybe if we yell at him enough, like you are, he might correct course. Maybe. Hopefully. Okay, fuck it. Praying, God willing, inshallah, as they say in Islam or over there in the Middle East.
He's basically saying he's the new Hitler. What is that? I mean, he's either a monster or a monster and a man-child.
I find these posts reprehensible. But Donald Trump is not a stupid man. I can assure you of that. He's won the White House twice.
Are you crazy?
Well,
he's managed to win the White House. Ever had in office.
Well, he's won the White House twice. He's not stupid.
Yeah, that's why I can't stand the corporate Democrats.
He's not stupid.
I mean, to be fair, you're right. I mean, the only people dumber than Donald Trump are the Democratic leadership that keep losing to him.
Okay.
Let's run as elitists. Let's run as pro-corporate and let's embrace Dick Cheney.
All right. Jesus. But I don't think he's stupid. But I do think his foreign policy generally actually has been one of his stronger points until this. This makes no sense to me. No, it hasn't made sense from day one.
No strong points. His foreign policy has been a disaster. So let's get back to the main issue here. So he said he was against the wars. You're absolutely right about that, especially against Middle Eastern wars. And he said he was worried that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were going to take us into World War III. Okay. And now what do we have? Ben Gvir threatening nukes. And by the way, if you haven't heard, China and Pakistan have said that if Israel nukes Iran, they will nuke Israel. So here we are on the precipice of a nuclear holocaust because this baboon is in office and he's like, oh, Bibi, how can I make you happy? Can you please give me more money? Am I going to be a hero, Bibi? I can't stand this guy. And doing the exact opposite of what he promised. The exact opposite. And one more thing a point that Glenn made that is really important. So Russia goes and destroys their army and their treasure in Ukraine. Now we're going to destroy our treasure. We spent $300 million on the rescue alone. It was a brilliant operation, but $300 million. We're spending $1 to $2 billion a day. So both Russia and the U.S. are destroying themselves in these totally needless wars, and China is laughing their ass off. How did they get this lucky that we're wasting our treasure and our military on wars for other countries? It's insanity. Let's go compete with China and India economically. Stop this military madness. Get someone who's an American and who's a decent person back in charge of America.
Okay. Let me bring Ryan back in here. I found a quote from retired Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Van Lindingham, who said on PBS, threatening to bomb every bridge and power plant in Iran in itself is a war crime, not just reckless talk, a crime. Why? Because terrorizing a civilian population through rhetoric violates the law of war, and the law of war is U.S. law. So that seems pretty clear there, that actually this kind of rhetoric can have very serious real-world consequences for Donald Trump.
Yeah, so a lot of this is a bargaining position. It's a lot of leverage that Trump is getting. And when it comes to actually targeting these structures, like a flew combat in Afghanistan, and there's a rule of engagement that you go through for every release, and you do everything you can to mitigate damage to civilians in the area. But if you look at some of these plants that have been struck so far, like Piers Energy Plant, Sharif University, Piers is basically powering the ballistic missile program for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So that makes it a legitimate target. Sharif University is a nerve center, a data center where the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has built and designed their missiles and their drones. And what I hear on the panel too is a lot of people being triggered by Trump. And I think that's what happens when someone with a backbone comes in and says, no, you know what, we're going to stand up to evil. And if you don't stand up to that evil, you're kind of like
but
that
what if
person.
you sound? What if, as Tucker Carlson said, what if in standing up to evil, you start to sound evil yourself? I mean, that
well,
is
maybe you do.
Nah, but here's the thing though. Whoever said that comment on, like, yo, sitting there saying that you're gonna blow up every bridge in Iran. I mean, bro, Bridge Day and Power Plant Day, aka you're going for everything. Yeah, that's a war crime, and you said it out loud. And the fact that anybody was really trying to sit there and argue the point that those are not war crimes. I mean, maybe you need to go read what a war crime is, or to go read through the Geneva Convention, because you forgot. Yeah, I obviously forgot. You're missing parts of history, guys. So let's go ahead and refresh on that. Well, you going to refresh on that. I'll probably do it on another stream.
You have to fight fire with fire. I mean, you're going up
but that's
against
the
a
problem,
terrorist
isn't it?
regime.
I've got a real
don't.
problem with that. You know, I've always, I can't. I've said this many times. I don't want to bore people, but I come from a lot of military in my family, right? And they're horrified about this because there's supposed to be a moral code. I'm sure you abided by it when you served.
Absolutely.
I know for a fact Rob did. Right, he's been on some of the biggest missions in American modern military history, and there's a strict moral code that abides along the way with these guys. Right, it's what makes the American military one of the finest in history. It's what makes the British military fine. The moment you lose that, the moment you abandon all pretense at morality or being a superior moral force, and you just decide to fight evil with evil, and you fight people threatening to annihilate you by annihilating the entire country, you lose me.
I think he's threatening to annihilate the IRGC and the regime. I don't think he's threatening
maybe
to
you should
annihilate the entire
maybe you
country.
should
I
do
think
his
that's pretty
posts,
clear
right? I mean,
from what we can see.
You're being very forgiving, but maybe you should be his digital producer, because that's
Literally.
not what he posted.
Well, I'll be the person that reads the second part of his Truth Social post. I mean, it's pretty clear right there that he's just talking about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. 47 years ago, the Islamic Revolution happened and brought in a terrorist regime run by radical Islamic clerics who want a nuclear weapon. So my question to the panel is, it'd be nice if we don't have to do anything.
That's actually not
I would
true.
prefer that we're not in war. It would be great, Sink, if we could not have to deal with this situation and we could just all go on with our lives, run our businesses, make money. That'd be great. But to me, you're coming across as someone who's putting a blindfold on.
You know what? F it. No, we're just going to get into a quick video on war crimes, because it's kind of crazy how people don't understand it. But I'll let him finish his spiel real quick.
Walking towards a cliff, and you're perfectly fine with that threat. And someone's like, "Hey, there's a cliff up there."
Yeah,
and you're like,
that's what you sound like to me.
It's nice out today, so we're just going to keep walking towards the cliff. And that cliff is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world.
What happens,
so not
Ryan?
only nuclear weapons,
Ryan,
just take
what
nuclear
happens?
weapons off the table.
Okay, but Ryan,
Totally
what happens?
untrue.
What happens, Ryan? Look, there are many people that share your view that the Iranians had to be dealt with, and that Trump's a trash talker, and he's just
The IRGC
and he's
had to be dealt
negotiating
with,
and so on.
not the
But let me
Iranians.
ask you, Ryan, a specific question. What happens if the Iranians call it?
21%.
What happens if the Iranians call his bluff? If 8 p.m. comes and goes tonight, Trump does not wipe out the whole country and is then looking, as I said earlier, like the emperor with no clothes. The guy that threatened to do all this stuff, and then they called his bluff and he didn't do it. That's the problem. You can exaggerate when you're selling a building in New York City. You can pile them high. Right, you can exaggerate a lot of things when you're president, actually. You can trash talk your rivals, or you can trash talk Hollywood people when they die, whatever. That has no real world level of consequence, other than people might find it disagreeable. But when you do this and you don't act on it, he is relying on the Iranian regime caving. I don't think that ideologically they will do that. Because they are basically nihilists. They've already said publicly in the last few hours, we don't care if we die. We'll die.
Bro, they don't care. They're forming human circles around power plants. It's like they don't care. They said, all right, cool, bomb the power plants. You're going to take us out with the power plants? I mean, maybe we might. But here's the thing. They're showing their resilience that, we don't care what you threaten. There is no bending the knee, and we're willing to go out with it. I'm like, so we're depending on these people to give up? I don't know about that one. I wish, I hope, but no, it's looking very unlikely.
If we have to, and I'm sure they mean it.
Of course.
So what happens if his bluff gets called?
Well, I think it's a fair point. I mean, some of the choice words, the words probably could have been stated differently. I think you bring up a fair point there. However, in warfare, there's also deception. So if you're deceiving the enemy, you're doing warfare correct. And so if 8 p.m. comes tonight and the bombs don't drop on specific facilities, then it'll drop somewhere else. And Trump will pivot somewhere else and use our military in a moral way to start to systematically destroy the IRGC's ability to fund themselves. And we saw Carge Island get hit this morning, late last night. And so they took out military infrastructure there while not targeting the oil infrastructure. So there's a strategic 4D chess plan. So again, pivoting and adapting can happen even when this claim has been made by the president.
Well, the thing is, we're going to find out. I mean, as somebody said to me last night, I first got to know Trump when I appeared on his Celebrity Apprentice show. And as someone said to me last night. Can I just add one
thing, Piers?
Yeah.
So I think there's a narrative out there that everybody's blaming Israel for everything, and it comes across as a mainstream corporate news talking point to me. But if you look back at the 80s, President Trump has an interview where he's...
Bro, hold on, bro. I mean, let's be real. CNN ain't really touching on it. Fox News ain't really touching on it. It's mainly independent media who's touching on it, who's touching on this whole fact that Israel dragged us into it. I mean, bro, Fox News just took the bait and said, oh, well, I guess it's not Israel. And I mean, well, Fox News never claimed it was Israel, but I'm talking about CNN. They're the one who just took it and was just like, oh, no, well, I guess it's not Israel. I guess there might be an actual threat that we don't know of that they've been pretty critical about. I'll give it to them. They've been like, we don't know about this imminent threat that you're talking about, but okay. But let's be real, though. They don't really bring up the fact that Israel dragged us into this war at all anymore.
Says Iran needs to be bombed. They need to be taken out. They're a dangerous regime.
There's no question. There's no question he has said that before, but there's also no question because Marco Rubio spelled it out for us on camera that the incentive for America to get involved this time was because the Israelis said we're going to attack.
I mean, obviously, Israel has an incentive for us to do this. That's obvious. That's clear. They benefit from this. However, America benefits a lot as well.
But the problem, my problem.
Sponsor of terror.
No, we don't.
The point I was going to make was, having appeared on The Apprentice, someone said to me last night, "This is like watching The Apprentice." This is my problem with the way Trump is conducting this war. War is not a game. It's not a reality show. And when people are waking up for the new installment from Donald Trump about the Iran war, and almost when you add all the memes that the White House has been putting out and the Hollywood-style video stuff and so on, none of it sits easily with me because there is nothing worse in the world than war. But as you know,
Piers, I agree.
And as Rob knows better than anybody, wars are about as real as life and death get, right? And the idea that the whole thing is treated like a kind of reality show sits really badly
at prime time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Prime time is when he set the time for it.
That's my point. It's like it's all what you would do if you're promoting a reality TV show. Because that's Trump's background, it sits even more uneasily. And I wish he wouldn't do it like this. I think there are different ways to do it.
All right, though, let's get into this quick little video, and then we're gonna get out of here. You go live until tomorrow, guys. Well, on YouTube. All right, let's get into it. Let's see what you need to know about war crimes, collective punishment. What else it says?
Right now, a lot of people are talking about war crimes. But what actually is a war crime? How difficult is it to punish a war criminal? And are war crimes ever justified? That last question is something that a lot of people are arguing at the moment. But it's also the easiest one to answer, so let's get it out of the way quickly.
War crimes are never justifiable, and answering war crimes with more war crimes is completely unacceptable.
It doesn't matter who started the war. It doesn't matter who was right.
Yeah, so just saying, well, Iran, they committed a war crime with the Strait of Hormuz, so we could commit war crimes against them. Yeah, no. Like, nope. I mean, if you're a real American, then you understand that we hold ourselves to a higher standard than our enemies or than to those that we see below us. So why the hell we stoop to their level? Like, why would we ever think that that's a good idea?
Are wrong in starting the war. It doesn't matter that one party may have done something horrible and the other party thinks that they're justified. There is no justification.
Okay, so with that sorted, let's break the rest of this down into 4 different parts. Who decides what a war crime is? What are the different types of war crimes? How is evidence collected? And how are war criminals brought to justice? The concept of the rules of war goes back a long time. But only recently did most of the world agree on how wars should be conducted. This is known as international humanitarian law, and it's made up of a patchwork of different treaties and conventions, like the Geneva Conventions, which were created after World War II. Because international humanitarian law is pulling from a number of different sources, not all countries agree on every single law within it. They may recognize one convention, but not another. And this is where things start to get a little bit complicated. But pretty much every country recognizes the...
They be picking and choosing like, I'll abide by the first or second convention, but that third one, I don't know about that one. I might need to commit that war crime one day. Like, whoa, okay.
Core idea that it's not about stopping the killing of enemy fighters. It's about trying to minimize suffering and protect people that aren't involved in the fighting, like civilians or soldiers that have surrendered. So, what are the different types of war crimes? When answering this question, human rights groups often point to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which breaks things down into 3 different categories. You've got war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. There's a bit of overlap between the 3 things, but they're largely considered to be separate. When it comes to war crimes, and this may seem obvious,
all right, so war crimes include torture, mutilation, corporal punishment, hostage taking, acts of terrorism. This category also covers violation of human dignity, such as rape, enforced prostitution, looting, execution without trial. War crimes, unlike crimes against humanity, are always committed in times of war. So, yeah. The great thing is, though,
when you break the...
Yes. Iran has committed war crimes. Hamas has committed war crimes. Hezbollah, everybody falls within this. But we do not lower ourselves to terrorist groups, or we become them ourselves. And if you hate when Dave Smith say that, we're the largest terrorist group or the largest state sponsor of terrorists, then you're not going to, then this is your moment to sit there and prove them wrong and not condone this shit. Because it would be a violation against their human dignity to pretty much take out their, I'm gonna be real with you, take out their electricity and their water. And it's something you'd also call collective punishment. But all right.
Rules of war during an armed conflict. And there are a lot of different crimes that fall under this category, like killing civilians, torture, and taking hostages. But it can also cover things like denying medical care or attacking historical monuments or forcing people to leave their homes.
Damn.
And
so crazy about this. So, attacking civilians. I mean, in this war right now, both Israel, United States, and Iran have both committed this action. Torture. Nobody's tortured anybody, thank God. Thank God. Taking hostages. I mean, bro, we was about to be in a hostage situation, but luckily nobody's done that. So we're good on that.
Attacking historical monuments.
But hold on here.
Or forcing people.
But yeah, cruel treatment. Israel, they kind of got caught up for that with their prisoners of war. Attacking protected objects. Yeah, Israel definitely did destroy a couple churches in Gaza. So, I mean, they did that. Oh, and displacing citizens. Oh, they did that all throughout Gaza. And they displaced about 1 million people in Lebanon. Like today, this is happening today. War crime today that nobody ever want to bring up. The displacing of the Lebanese people by about 1 million. But it's all good though, right? It's all good, the Holy Land.
People to leave their homes. And it's not just what you do during a conflict, but also how you conduct yourself when you're actually fighting. That can mean using child soldiers or using civilians as human shields. For example, firing missiles from inside a crowded school because your enemy can't retaliate without putting civilians at risk. There's also something called collective punishment, which is punishing a group of people that may not be involved in the conflict, just because you suspect that some of the people living there might be enemy soldiers.
AKA, just because the IRGC uses that bridge, we're going to put collective punishment on the people and destroy that bridge. Just because the IRGC may get power out of that power plant, or most likely does, we're going to put the people in the collective punishment and make millions go in the blackout just to get at the IRGC. Yeah, that's collective punishment.
And then there's the use of certain weapons. They may be considered inhumane because they cause unnecessary suffering, or it could be because they're indiscriminate, so not targeted and likely to cause collateral damage and harm civilians. A lot of these crimes may seem pretty straightforward, but where things start to get a bit more...
crimes that Iran committed so far, by the way.
Murky is when proportionality comes into it.
In international humanitarian law, there is an acceptance that there will be some civilian losses, but its anticipated military advantage has to outweigh that.
Basically, if your military goal is considered important enough and you take steps to minimize collateral damage by giving warnings beforehand or using targeted attacks, civilians can die without it being considered a war crime. The next category covers crimes against humanity, which are a step up.
That's what Israel tries to do with dropping the leaflets, but the leaflets will tell you to go to a place that, you know, is going to be bombed, or they'll just tell you to leave and they never bomb the location at all. Yeah.
From war crimes, at least.
Yeah, that's the tricky part about the whole warning with leaflets and all that good stuff, because people, they don't really know what's written on those leaflets. We just know that, oh, Israel dropped them. But according to the Palestinians, yeah, they were told to go to places that would be bombed eventually. Well, or when they were going to that place.
In terms of scale,
it has to be committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack, and it needs to be directed against any civilian populations.
A war crime can be the death of just one person, whereas crimes against humanity are often organised campaigns with the aim of killing or torturing or displacing a large group of civilians over a period of time. Another big difference is that crimes against humanity don't need to take place during a conflict. Think apartheid in South Africa, or the way that Joseph Stalin used to make his political opponents disappear in the Soviet Union. The final category is genocide. What separates genocide from crimes against humanity is that the end goal needs to be the complete destruction of an entire group of people. For example, during the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were killed, the goal of the Nazis was to exterminate the Jewish people completely. Genocide also doesn't technically have to involve killing. It could take the form of trying to starve a group of people or taking away their children. Now, when it comes to proving war crimes, human rights groups play a big role in the collection of evidence.
We spend thousands of hours researching, monitoring, and documenting human rights abuses in an effort to pull perpetrators to justice.
That can involve interviewing witnesses and survivors, working with local organisations and journalists, and going through huge amounts of photos and videos to try to reconstruct events.
When you're building a case, you're not relying on one piece of evidence, you're relying on a patchwork of information that can piece it together and also be corroborated.
There are plenty of challenges that come with collecting evidence, like needing to work in active war zones, going through huge amounts of data, and then having to verify everything.
Sometimes there's just too much. There's so much coming out.
So, once all of the evidence is collected, what happens next? Human rights groups create detailed reports and pass them on to international bodies or governments that might follow it up with another investigation. Or they might be passed on to groups that will then use that evidence to build a legal case. Some human rights groups, like Fortify Rights, even go as far as pursuing legal cases themselves. Actually prosecuting war criminals in court, however, is challenging for a number of reasons. Proving that a war crime has simply taken place,
I mean, trust me, when we see that with Bibi Netanyahu,
can be straightforward. But actually linking it to an individual, especially if there's someone high-ranking that wasn't directly involved on the ground, can be very tough. And it's those high-ranking officials that are often the ones that end up in court because of how expensive and time-consuming these types of cases are. It can also be quite difficult to prove the more extreme acts because you also need to prove intent. And even before you get to any of these issues, there's the problem of actually finding a court that will take your case. It's often not possible to go to court in the country where the crime was committed because the country may still be at war, or it may be the government that has committed the crime.
You know, often you find that they obviously won't investigate themselves.
AKA, yeah, we ain't going to investigate ourselves. And AKA, we ain't going to let another country investigate us. I mean, a little bit shaky.
There are international tribunals and courts like the International Criminal Court, but its powers are limited because not every country recognizes its authority. For example, Russian President Vladimir Putin has an arrest warrant out for war crimes with the ICC. But as long as he avoids countries that recognize the ICC, he likely won't have to face trial. Another option are the domestic courts of countries that have universal jurisdiction. An example of this happened in France in 2014, when it convicted Pascal Simbakangwa for his role in the Rwandan genocide. The bottom line is that actual war crime convictions aren't all that common. But that doesn't mean that the work of human rights groups goes to waste. The detailed reports and evidence that human rights groups put together can lead to international pressure and travel bans on war criminals. Early reporting on war crimes can also sometimes help to stop conflicts from escalating, and it can lead to support and assistance for victims of war.
All right, I think y'all get the point. I think we pretty much get how each country low-key committed war crimes. I think I've been pretty fair in my assessment or the analysis. But all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and time out on this one. We'll be back on YouTube tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and post this full live on YouTube. So just look out for it. In the meantime, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Peace. Yo, this is Set with Set Media, man. I'm here to talk to you about our partner, Kalshi. Kalshi is the largest legal prediction market in the United States with over 1 million users. It's available in all 50 states. They are a